The Xiandao sect's disciples were also all secretly evaluating the Hengyu sect disciples, especially the ones who were at the 6th layer and higher. Wang Zhuo's looks and his peak 5th layer cultivation also made the Xiandao sect disciples keep him in mind. As for Wang Lin, he was only at the 3rd layer, so they completely ignored him. Everyone aside from Lu Mei, that is. She paid a little attention to him. As the two sects' elders talked to each other, they were also secretly looking at each other's disciples. The Xiandao sect's 3 elders became more and more happy as they saw the Hengyu sect's disciples. They thought that if these were all the disciples the Hengyu sect had, they would win this exchange for sure. But they had secretly been in conflict with the Hengyu sect for many years and knew that they were very cunning. They would save the killing blow until the most crucial moment. Even though there were quite a few disciples of the 6th layer present, all of them were new faces, and all the ones that participated last time weren't in sight. Those were the people who they needed to focus on during this exchange. The sect head, Huang Long, scanned the Xiandao sect's disciples. His gaze paused on the male and female with the pure water spirit roots. He secretly sighed in his heart. In the past 500 years, the Hengyu sect had really fallen without a successor. Even the Xiandao sect, which was an unknown, small sect only 500 years ago, could constantly beat the Hengyu sect. He originally thought that they would win this time, but 2 single-element spirit root disciples had appeared this time, which made him very worried. Do we really need the purple-clothed disciples to come out? They are currently in training. Suddenly, Huang Long's gaze fell on the disciple all the way in the back and he finally made a decision. Fine. Since they sent this disciple, then it's time for our core disciples to come out as well. Thinking about this, he laughed and said, "Friend Ouyang, the disciples must be tired from the trip. Let them go rest first. Us few old guys should have a good time. Come into the main hall." He waved his hand to welcome them into the main hall with a smile on his face. Xiandao sect's 3 elders nodded and followed him into the main hall. The Hengyu sect's elders followed in behind them. Elder Su was the last one. He turned to the disciples and said, "Wang Zhuo, you're in charge of taking care of the Xiandao sect's disciples. If there are any issues, teacher won't forgive you." Wang Zhuo seemed to be prepared for this. He respectfully said, "Teacher doesn't have to worry. I will properly take care of Xiandao sect's fellow apprentice brothers and sisters." Elder Su smiled at the Xiandao sect's disciples and said, "Disciples of the Xiandao sect, if you have any needs, you can ask Wang Zhuo. This old man is old, so I won't bother you young ones. You all should get to know each other more. The future of the cultivation world belongs to you all." After he finished speaking, he walked into the main hall with a faint smile. The moment the elders left, the disciples immediately became more relaxed. Some of the Hengyu sect's female disciples went up to the male with the water spirit root and started to make small talk. Their eyes were filled with admiration. Besides the Hengyu sect's 6th layer disciples appeared some Xiandao sect's disciples. They made small talk about their experiences. As for the other disciples, they all started to talk with each other. There were also many disciples who looked up to the unmoving centipede in amazement. Wang Lin looked at the scene and didn't want to join in. He went off to the side and sat down on some steps. Looking at the blue sky and white clouds while bathing in the sunlight felt very comfortable. There were many other disciples like Wang Lin that didn't like the crowds, like the female named Zhou. She saw Wang Lin and casually walked over. "Junior brother Wang, I want to congratulate you on reaching the 3rd layer. There aren't many inner disciples as hardworking as you," the female named Zhou said with a smile. She sat down on the steps without a caring if it was dirty or not. Wang Lin chuckled. He shook his head and said, "It's not like what you said at all. I see that most of these people are painstakingly cultivating as well." The female named Zhou looked at the clouds. She sighed and said, "Junior brother Wang, don't sell yourself short. During the 4 year of intense training, almost all the inner disciples came out very often, but I rarely saw you. Cultivation is a very boring thing to do. Junior brother Wang, to be honest, I admire you. To reach the 3rd layer in 4 years takes a lot of perseverance." Wang Lin rubbed his nose and smiled. "Senior sister Zhou, didn't you also reach the 3rd layer?" The female named Zhou sighed and gloomily said, "I reached the 3rd layer 3 years ago, but now all the disciples who were weaker than me back then have surpassed me. Maybe it's because I can't cut off my mortal ties." Wang Lin pondered for a while and said, "The road is ruthless. If senior sister Zhou wants to advance, you must understand this phrase." The female named Zhou looked at Wang Lin with her beautiful eyes. Revealing her beautiful teeth, she said, "Junior brother Wang, I can see that you have already reached the peak of the third layer and can break through at any time. I think that you will soon surpass me too." Wang Lin stared at the breathtaking beauty. He wryly smiled and said, "I won't be able to break through anytime soon. These mortal ties aren't something I can cut easily." The female named Zhou was stunned. She hesitated and asked, "Junior brother Wang, it's rude of me to ask, but what mortal ties can you not cut?" Wang Lin shook his head and didn't answer. His mind was filled with thoughts about his parents. The female named Zhou saw that Wang Lin was reluctant to answer. She sighed and said, "I can't cut the ties with my family. Cultivation is too ruthless. Maybe I'm not fit for this." Wang Lin was about to speak, but he suddenly turned his head and saw Wang Zhua staring at him and the female named Zhou with an evil gaze. At that moment they heard Wang Zhua's voice. "Brothers and sisters of the Xiandao sect, you all said this centipede likes to eat live animals. Let us, the Hengyu sect, take care of it for you during your stay. I have a junior brother, you see. Cultivation is just a waste of time for him. So making him catch live animals to feed this centipede is a much more fitting job for him." The male disciple with the water spirit root hesitated and said, "Brother Wang Zhua, this is a bit improper. The centipede's nature is wild. If a stranger were feed it, that person might be in danger." Wang Zhua said with a gentle expression, "Don't worry, Brother Lu. How could a cultivator back down because of danger? You are our guests. These chores should be left to us, the Hengyu sect." Some of Wang Zhua's companions agreed and one of them said, "This is true. Friends of the Xiandao sect, leave it to us." All of the Xiandao sect's disciples hesitated. The disciple named Lu wanted to use the elders as an excuse, but at that moment, the middle-aged man in the back lightly coughed. The disciple named Lu's face twitched. He nodded and said, "If that's the case, then we will trouble the Hengyu sect." Wang Zhua smiled. He turned toward Wang Lin and loudly yelled, "Junior brother Wang Lin, the job of feeding the centipede will be left to you. You need to be careful." Hearing Wang Zhua's words, all of the Xiandao sect's disciples turned their heads to look at Wang Lin. They all had strange expressions on their faces. How could they still not understand the meaning behind it all? This Wang Lin must have offended Wang Zhua. Among the Hengyu sect disciples, one person laughed and said, "I was wondering who brother Wang Zhua was talking about. As I expected, it's junior brother Wang Lin." Someone else continued, "This job is really fitting for him. With his lack of talent, it's really a waste of time for him to cultivate. There is no chance for him to compete in the exchange. There really is no one else more fitting for these chores than him. Junior brother Wang Lin, you must do your job properly and not lose the Hengyu sect any face." Hearing the laughter, the Xiandao sect's disciples understood that not only had Wang Lin offended Wang Zhua, but because of his lack of talent, had also become the target of mockery among the other disciples. This kind of thing happened in every sect, so it was not a big deal. As a result, all of the Xiandao sect's disciples categorized Wang Lin as trash. The female named Zhou that was sitting next to Wang Lin frowned. She shot Wang Zhua a disgusted look. She whispered to Wang Lin, "Junior brother Wang Lin, if I hadn't come, he wouldn't have targeted you." Wang Lin shook his head. Wang Zhua hadn't just been targeting him for a few days. Ever since the first day they met and onwards, Wang Zhua had always made an effort to ridicule him. The rest of the sect had looked down on him due to the fact that he got accepted by trying to commit suicide and then became an inner disciple due to elder son. Most importantly, he was only at the third layer, making him the weakest among these disciples. Power was everything. Wang Lin eyed the 1,000-foot centipede that was lying on the ground. He didn't care and pretended like he hadn't heard any of it. Not long after, Wang Zhua assigned a few disciples to lead the Xiandao sect's disciples to their rooms to rest. The Xiandao sect's disciple with the water spirit roots named Lu glanced at Wang Lin before he left and gently said, "You must be brother Wang Lin. Our Xiandao sect's centipede has a wild nature. When you feed it, you mustn't get too close, or you will be injured." Wang Zhua looked at Wang Lin with a cold smile. He didn't bother him anymore after that. Soon, everyone dispersed from outside the main hall. The female named Zhou frowned. She talked with Wang Lin for a bit more, then left. Looking at the deserted area, Wang Lin stood up and walked toward the centipede. He stopped 10 feet away from it and carefully examined the spirit beast. Upon a closer look, this 1,000-foot centipede was an enormous beast. The body was formed by many sections, and between each section were rings with thorns pointing out like countless swords. There were also faint black spots all over its body, and its head had 2 massive pincers sticking out. In addition, what attracted the most attention were the 2 long red whiskers that moved without wind, as if they were 2 very long snakes. As if it knew Wang Lin was looking at him, it opened and closed its eyes, giving Wang Lin a cold glance. Wang Lin immediately felt a cold sensation sweep by. Wang Lin's body felt cold, but the movement of spirit power in his body immediately dispersed the coldness. The 1,000-foot centipede revealed a surprised expression. It gave Wang Lin a deep and thoughtful look, then closed its eyes and ignored Wang Lin. Wang Lin revealed an interested expression. No wonder this was a spirit beast, it even had human-like expressions. While musing this, he left at a brisk pace for the mountains. Using his divine sense, he easily captured some small animals and came back. Along the way, Wang Lin saw some of the Xiandao sect's disciples being led by some senior disciples. When they saw Wang Lin with the small animals in his hands, they laughed, which drew the Xiandao sect's disciples' attention. One of the Xiandao sect's female disciples, who looked very pretty, with a face that looked so delicate, it felt as if it could be broken by a drop of water, laughed. "Junior brother, all of those small animals you caught won't be enough to feed the 1,000-foot centipede. You should go catch a large worm. Those are the centipede's favorite." One of the inner sect disciples immediately tried to suck up and said, "Junior sister Ouying, this dumb kid is like a mute. There is no need to talk to him. You didn't know this, but he isn't qualified to cultivate." He failed all of the entrance tests and then tried to commit suicide, which forced the elders to accept him as an honorary disciple. Wang Lin was familiar with the person who talked. He was the one that ridiculed him back during the training period somehow. Someone from the Xiandao sect quickly asked, "Honorary disciple? But I see him wearing red. He should be the Hongyu sect's inner disciple." Sun Hao loudly laughed. "I'm not done yet." This kid used some lowly method to gain the favor of one of the elders, and was quickly raised to an inner disciple. But even so, with his talent, he will only be laughed at for the rest of his life. Wang Lin glanced at them and left. He arrived back near the centipede and threw the small animals next to it. The moment the small beasts saw the centipede, they immediately fell to the ground, trembling in fear. The centipede opened its eyes and didn't even look at the small animals. He spat out a black gas. The moment the black gas touched the small animals, there was a sizzling sound. In a blink of an eye, the small animals turned into a pool of blood. The centipede sucked the blood into its mouth. Wang Lin took a few steps back. His eyes lit up. Centipedes typically contain poison, and these poisons were their greatest weapon. As a child, he read a book that mentioned that the poison of a centipede was related to its size. Simply said, the larger the centipede, the stronger the poison. The centipede before him was 100 feet long. The poison it contained must have reached an unimaginable level. Wang Lin wasn't unfamiliar with centipedes. Many of the children caught centipedes to play with, and many used them to feed their chickens. Sometimes they would accidentally be bitten by the centipede, but all they needed to do was wash the wound with a lot of water, then at most lay in bed for a few days and they would be fine. There was even a time where he collected centipedes for their poison. The doctor at the village said that if the centipede's poison was used properly, it could be used to cure illnesses. In the early days, his father couldn't afford to buy wood for his work, so he went up to the mountains to chop wood and let the cold air enter his body. This caused him to almost lose his life. At that time, the prescription made by the doctor contained centipede poison. Although his father's illness was cured, the illness left its roots in his father's body. Every time it rained, his father would be in a lot of pain. The prescription the doctor gave to help with the pain contained centipede poison as well, so Wang Lin had caught a lot of centipedes for his father. Until now, Wang Lin still remembered what happened back then. Looking at the 100-foot centipede, Wang Lin stroked his chin. If the small centipede's poison could help his dad's illness, Then the poison from this centipede might just remove the root of the problem once and for all. But the centipede before him was simply too large, and Wang Lin was just too small compared to it. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to get any poison and hurt himself in the process. Suddenly, Wang Lin remembered a method for obtaining centipede poison. This method was passed down through the generations. It was to make a pill to feed to the centipede. Once the centipede consumed said pill, it would spit out poison. Thinking about it, he stared at the centipede and walked toward the pill house. The pill house contained the most materials in the sect. He also hadn't seen Wang Hao in 4 years, so it would be good to check up on him. It was already getting dark when Wang Lin arrived at the pill house and saw Wang Hao carefully exiting from the side door. Wang Hao saw Wang Lin and gestured him to be silent. He motioned him to go outside. Wang Lin was stunned. He sent out his divine sense and found the third elder staring at the pill furnace with a serious expression on his face. After walking away for a while, Wang Hao saw that Wang Lin had silently followed him out. He grabbed Wang Lin and quickly ran. After running away for a while, he finally let out a breath. Wang Hao was short of breath. He warily looked toward the pill house and quickly asked, with a glint of hope, "Wang Lin, I heard you went to the intense training 4 years ago. What layer are you at now?" "The third layer, what is this?" Wang Lin scanned Wang Hao with his divine sense and found that Wang Hao was already at the first layer, but the spiritual energy in his body was very strange. The spiritual energy wasn't flowing properly, but moving in an odd path. Every time the flow circulated through Wang Hao's body, it would take away a bit of Wang Hao's life essence from his organs and absorb it. In this state, Wang Lin was afraid that it wouldn't be long before Wang Hao ran out of life essence and died. Wang Hao bitterly smiled and said, "You saw through it?" Wang Lin nodded and said, "Wang Hao, tell me what this is about." Wang Hao tightened his fist and said while grinding his teeth, "Back when we went to the exchange, I always regretted not being able to get the foundation establishment pill. Later, Master Ba Luyuni gave me a foundation establishment pill to repay me for being his helper. I was very surprised at the time. He also gave me a cultivation method and told me that it was better than the one the sect gives. I didn't think too much about it and cultivated with it." Wang Lin took a deep breath and asked, "What? Let me see." Wang Hao took out a thread-bound book and threw it to Wang Lin. He continued, "But after I practiced it for 2 years, my body became weaker. Although I can manage to condense spirit power in my body, I can't use it. Later, I secretly bribed a disciple to look it up for me, and found that the cultivation method Lu Yunjie gave me is called Fire Furnace Trial." Wang Lin opened the book and looked through it. The more he read, the more shocked he became. What was in the book was completely different from what was inside the 3 layers of qi condensation. Instead of using the spiritual energy to refine the body, it gathered spiritual energy into a swirl. This swirl would expand as one gathered spirit power, and it would soon be able to absorb the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth to refine the body from the outside, achieving something similar to qi condensation. In simple terms, qi condensation was to slowly refine the body from the inside, and the latter was a high-handed method. If one was lucky, the swirl would expand outside the body before the body collapsed and achieve qi condensation, and if not, then the body would be destroyed before the swirl expanded to outside the body. Wang Hao said with his teeth grinding, "This fire furnace trail cultivation method, the archives in the sect held some copies of this. It is said to have been obtained from the extinct country of Lu. Only 2 out of 10 cultivators would survive using this method. It's all based on luck." Wang Lin asked the important question, "What benefit would Lu Yunjie gain from all this?" Wang Hao's eyes grew cold. He darkly said, "He wants to use me as a pill furnace. When the disciple of the archives gave me the information, it was recorded that the moment someone dies from cultivating the fire furnace trial, if a certain method is used, a pill that extends one's life for 3 years can be created." Wang Lin took in a cold breath and thought that this third elder Lu Yunjie was too cruel. Wang Hao's expression was bitter. He harshly said, "I don't dare to talk about this with the other elders and the sect head. After all, I'm Lu Yunjie's helper. Under the sect rules, my life is no longer mine but Lu Yunjie's. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have agreed to be his helper. It is too late to regret it now. Lu Yunjie found out that I know the secret and threatened me with my parents. Now I have no control over my life. Every day I must take several qi gathering pills, and the swirl in my body grows larger by the day. Based on my calculations, I only have about a year left to live. Wang Lin pondered for a while and said, "What plans do you have? Do you need my help for anything?" Wang Hao sighed and said, "You are only at the 3rd layer. You can't help me because Lu Yunjie is already at the 6th layer. Also, because he can produce pills, he is loved by the elders. I have already given up hope. Wang Lin, in these few years at the Hengyu sect, you are my only friend and my big brother. If you become stronger in the future, you have to avenge me." Wang Hao tightened his fists after he finished speaking. Wang Lin stared at Wang Hao and nodded. Wang Hao bitterly smiled and said, "Brother Taizhu, did you need me for something? While I'm still alive, I'll help you as much as I can. Do you want some qi gathering pills? I have a lot of them." Wang Lin looked at Wang Hao. He gave up on asking Wang Hao for the materials he needed and shook his head. He wanted to help Wang Hao, but the enemy was at the 6th layer. Wang Lin was not confident at all. Although his divine sense was different from others and he had practiced the attraction technique for more than 20 years, he had never fought with any other human, so he couldn't say for sure how strong he was. Wang Hao saw that Wang Lin stayed silent. He bitterly patted his clothes and said, "Brother Taizhu, you have more talent than I do. Thinking back to when we were taking the test, it feels like a dream. Time passes by too quickly." Wang Hao sighed and turned to leave with a gloomy expression. He slowly disappeared from Wang Lin's view. In this cultivation world, the strong prey on the weak. Wang Lin pondered this deeply in his heart as he stared at the sky. At that moment, Wang Lin had an epiphany. The so-called epiphany wasn't one where he suddenly gained understanding and his cultivation suddenly increased, but more like knowledge being poured into one's brain. What was increased here wasn't one's cultivation or soul, but one's understanding of heaven and earth. Realizing the cruel nature of the cultivation world was his epiphany. To be a cultivator, one must have the attitude of a cultivator. Wang Lin mumbled as he let out a sigh. Is the strong preying on the weak really the mentality a cultivator must have? His body moved and he disappeared from where he was. When he was on his way back to the herb garden, Wang Lin's expression suddenly changed as he looked at the guest rooms that the Xiandao sect disciples were staying at and thoughtfully walked toward it. Before he even entered, he heard an exaggerated voice from inside. "I have to say, brothers of the Hengyu sect, this flying sword I have is one of the peerless treasures of the Xiandao sect. It is called the Noon Money Sword. You guys ask around yourselves to know how much trouble I spent stealing this sword. If any of you wants to buy this, then you have to make a vow to not use this in the exchange in 3 days, or I'm not selling it." Someone immediately asked with doubt, "Is this treasure really as amazing as you say it is?" I, Li Shan, would never lie. If you guys don't believe me, then forget it. I can sell this flying sword anywhere. Wang Lin already found this place to be unusual, as a lot of disciples from both sects were gathered here. When he walked closer, he saw a 20-something-year-old disciple of the Xiandao sect holding a sword made of coins that was glowing blue, talking bombastically about the sword. The Xiandao sect disciples in the surroundings all had weird expressions on their faces. One of them couldn't stand it anymore. He coughed and said, "What junior brother Li Shan said is correct. This Noon Money Sword is indeed a treasure of our Xiandao sect. But I have to say that the one in junior brother Li Shan's hand is a fake. However, it still has some uses." The Hengyu sect disciples talked among themselves. Then a 5th-layer disciple walked forward. Wang Lin remembered that this disciple was named Zhao. Disciple Zhao walked up to Li Shan and they talked among themselves until they made an exchange, both with smiles on their faces. Among the inner disciples, there were people who knew about the sword and mockingly said, "It is just a simple iron sword with some broken spirit gold, and someone dared to try to sell it? It seems the Xiandao sect is worth only so much." Li Shan immediately retorted, "What this brother said is incorrect. My elder apprentice brother even said that this was a fake, but your Hengyu sect still had someone who bought it. This type of thing is best to buy for the sake of novelty." The Hengyu sect disciple who bought the sword laughed and said, "Brother Li Shan, what you said is wrong. I didn't buy this sword to collect, but to give it to my dad. My family raises pigs, so this sword would be perfect for killing pigs." Li Shan didn't get mad and said, smiling, "Since you already bought it, I don't care what you do with it. Hey, I still have another treasure. It's called the Invincible Dark Stinking Thunderball. This thing really is a treasure. I'm not lying. We can even do a live test. With that, he took out a black ball and threw it at a wall. With a boom, cracks appeared on the wall. There was a dark mist on the spot the ball hit and it emitted a foul odor. Li Shan said with a proud and smiling face. How is it? This invincible dark stinking thunderball is my own personal hidden weapon. Although the power isn't strong, if it lands on someone, this sludge is something even I can't wash off. Especially the smell. It's something I made after gathering dozens of beasts. Anyone would be disgusted by it. Everyone was stunned and stared at each other with their mouths wide open. A few of the female disciples pinched their noses and took a few steps back. Wang Lin was also surprised. He sent out his divine sense and his expression suddenly turned strange. The disciples of the Xiandao sect all felt really awkward, but Li Shan was known in the Xiandao sect for making weird things. No one dared to mess with him because no one wanted to get hit by one of those stink bombs. The invincible black sludge stink bomb was really famous in the Xiandao sect. Secretly, it could almost match one of the sect's real treasures. So how was it? This time I'm showing you all hidden my ace, but I still have to say the same thing I said before. You can't use it in the exchange in 3 days or I won't sell it to you. Li Shan revealed a serious expression but secretly laughed in his heart. You silly brats, the more I say you mustn't use it, the more likely you guys will use it in the exchange. There will be a good show to see. The elders will definitely praise me, and even give me a few magical treasures. With that, his eyes lit up and he began to shout. Fellow brothers of the Hengyu sect, there is an old saying, killing people only takes a nod of the head. But I have to ask everyone, how could killing people be as satisfying as disgracing them? By disgracing them, they would stink for 10,000 years. Think about it, when you are fighting with your rival and you use this, even if you don't win, you still come out with more face than them. Or when escaping, if you have this move, it also works wonders. If you run into a crowded area, how would he still have the face to chase after you? Also, if you encounter a love rival, this could also be a deciding move. If anyone dares to steal your woman, use this on them and then he would never have a chance as she would never want to be around the stink. Li Shan's advertising moved a lot of the inner sect disciples, especially when he talked about how it could be used against love rivals. That really resonated with some of the disciples. This thing was really a top quality item to get rid of love rivals. Li Shan's gaze shifted toward Wang Lin in the distance. He knew that Wang Lin was considered trash in the Hengyu sect. People like him were big customers for Li Shan. The trash back in the Xiandao sect had already been cleaned out by him. So when he saw Wang Lin, he excitedly continued. This bomb is especially useful for brothers with lower cultivation. With this stink bomb in hand, who would dare to bully you again? If anyone dares to bully you, throw one at them. I, Li Shan, can promise you that you can walk tall in the sect without anyone daring to bother you. With that, Li Shan secretly laughed in his heart. No one daring to bully you was impossible. It was more like it would invite a beating. Li Shan saw that he had almost won many people over. He quickly tried to seal the deal. This stink bomb is a really good self-defense weapon for the people with lower cultivation. Today I'll have a sale. Buy 2 get 1. Consider it a gift from me. When we meet again in the cultivation world, don't forget to take care of me. Among the disciples that were moved by everything he said, one asked, is this item really as amazing as you say? Take out a few more and let me randomly test one. If it's really that good, I'll buy a few to play with. Li Shan took out a dozen of the stink bombs from his bag of holding and gently placed them on the ground, as if he was afraid they would explode, and said, you must keep in mind to be careful with this treasure. Gently pick it up and place it down. When using it, just toss it. When it meets any resistance, it will explode. The inner disciple that had spoken up was Sun Hao. Sun Hao stepped up and randomly carefully picked up one of the stink bombs and examined it in his hand. Li Shan's expression remained normal, but he quietly mocked him in his heart. Little brat, think you can understand it? Besides the sect's elders, not even the senior brothers are able to see through its secret. Sun Hao looked at it for a long time and wasn't able to find anything special about the stink bomb. He threw the stink bomb into a distant clearing, and as the bomb flew in an arc, the moment it was about to hit the ground, Li Shan thought in his mind, explode. With a bang, the stink bomb exploded, making the ground black and filled with a foul odor. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. No one knew that his divine sense had covered the area. When the stink bomb exploded, he detected a fluctuation of spirit power from Li Shan. When Li Shan threw the stink bomb the first time, it was the same. Wang Lin chuckled, but he didn't point it out and kept on watching. Li Shan said, smiling, "How was it? These stink bomb are really powerful, right? But I, Li Shan, am an honest man, so I'll say the ugly stuff now. This treasure doesn't explode all the time. To make it explode requires a certain throwing technique. Once you guys have bought it, you can figure it yourself, so don't come to me about it." Sun Hao walked up to Li Shan and whispered something to him. They walked over to the side and he took out quite a few things. Li Shan thought about it for a while and took out 10 stink bombs to exchange. Li Shan whispered, "You normally only get 3 free for buying 6, but since you are the first buyer, I'll throw in 1 more for free." After one person traded for them first and even tested it, a few other inner disciples came up and bought a few. Every time Li Shan finished his sale, he would always add a few words. Things like, "This thing isn't guaranteed to succeed all the time. If it doesn't work, practice it a few more times." If there was any question, they could come and ask him and he could teach them the throwing technique. When saying this, Li Shan laughed in his heart. "You guys will try several times and fail, then try a different one and succeed after 1 or 2 tries. I'm only going to be here for a few days, so by the time you guys suspect me, I'll be long gone." But there were still many disciples who were cautious and didn't buy any. After a while, there were only a few stink bombs left. Li Shan proudly looked at the Hengyu sect disciples and thought, "A bunch of idiots. Humph, if you guys don't use it in the exchange in 3 days, then all you'll have done is get cheated by me, but if you do use it, then there will be something good to watch. These stink bombs are completely under my control. Other people can't even explode it using a hammer. I really can't wait for the exchange in 3 days." His gaze swept the surroundings and he noticed Wang Lin's faint smile. He was stunned. His eyes turned and he said, "Brother, why don't you buy a few to play with? With your cultivation, these are truly fitting for you. If anyone bothers you, just throw one at them." Wang Lin looked at Li Shan and revealed a mocking expression. Li Shan was surprised. That look made him feel as if Wang Lin had seen through his secret. He carefully looked at Wang Lin and saw that Wang Lin was only at the 3rd layer. Being called trash couldn't have been for no reason, so he thought that it must have been his own imagination. Wang Lin lightly smiled. He nodded and said, "Okay, I'll exchange for 2, but I don't have any treasures. Only talismans from the sect." Li Shan hesitated for the first time. He made sure Wang Lin was only at the 3rd layer before he finally relaxed and took out 3 stink bombs. He smiled and said, "Brother, I'll give you face and sell them for talismans. Buy 2 get 1. These stink bombs will give you an extraordinary feeling, haha." Finished speaking, he thought, "I wasn't lying when I said it will be an extraordinary feeling. As long as you hold on to the stink bombs, even if you don't use it during the exchange, if I ever meet you again, I'll let you know what the extraordinary feeling is like. Something you will remember for life, haha." Wang Lin put away the stink bomb and looked at Li Shan. He said, "Brother Li Shan, I won't bother you anymore, so please continue selling." Li Shan nodded. He revealed a friendly expression and said, "Brother, you must be careful with those stink bombs. Remember, they don't always work because they require a certain throwing technique. If you don't succeed, don't say I lied to you." With that, he continued to tout to the other people. "Fellow brothers, I still have another treasure. This is a keepsake from the He Huan sect. With this, you can go to the He Huan sect to get a beautiful girl. This is something I got through a lot of painstaking effort, but I'll sell it based on our friendship. Fellow brothers of the Hengyu sect, you mustn't miss out on this chance." Wang Lin chuckled. He turned around and headed back to the herb garden. Not long after, he had arrived at the garden. He scanned the garden and found that Sundaju was not there, so he sat down cross-legged in his room and took out the 3 stink bombs to examine them. After a long time, Wang Lin revealed an interested expression. These stink bombs appeared transparent under his divine sense, as if there were no secrets they could hide. To say it plainly, there was a trace of Li Shan's divine sense in the stink bombs that allowed him to detonate them at will. Wang Lin never knew that divine sense could be used like this. After carefully mimicking it, he overlapped the divine sense in the stink bombs with his. He didn't destroy Li Shan's divine sense, but surrounded it. If he wished to, he could destroy it at any time. The use of divine sense on this stink bomb inspired Wang Lin. He pondered a little and took out the mysterious bead. If divine sense can be used like this, can it be used the same way on the bead? Wang Lin's eyes lit up and his divine sense quickly gathered on the mysterious bead. After a long time, Wang Lin frowned. The stone bead looked like it hadn't changed, and under his divine sense, it looked the same as always as well. He pondered for a moment, then he took the stone bead and left the herb garden. At the fastest speed, he went to a secluded place in the mountains and entered the dream space. The moment he entered, he knew that time was of the essence and he quickly spread out his divine sense. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. There was no change. Wang Lin rubbed his chin and muttered, "Can I really not leave my divine sense inside the mysterious bead?" At that moment, one of the glowing objects suddenly began to shine brightly, then finally dimmed. Wang Lin was stunned. Then, like a chain reaction, other glowing objects started to dim. Soon, all of the glowing objects in the dream space dimmed, until there was no light remaining and the dream space became completely dark. Wang Lin was shocked. He carefully observed for a long time and couldn't find anything unusual. An old voice suddenly appeared. "I don't need to observe anymore. With your spiritual movement stage, trying to see through the heaven-defying bead is just wishful thinking." Wang Lin was startled and his pupils shrank. He had been in the dream space for dozens of years, and this was the first time he had heard someone else speak. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He suppressed the shock in his heart. He clasped his hands and respectfully said, "Junior's name is Wang Lin and senior is?" Wang Lin was a smart man. He didn't think that the person had suddenly appeared, but had been there all along and had observed him for the 30 years he had been in here. As a junior of this small country, you don't have the need to know this old man's name. You used nearly 30 years of time with my help and the help of the stone bead, and only reached the spiritual movement stage. That is truly disappointing, especially your perception. You only now thought of using your divine sense to scan the bead. Humph. Wang Lin pondered for a while. He had observed the stone bead with his divine sense before, but just hadn't observed for as long as now. Your way of doing things really annoys me. Cultivating is a heaven-defying act. If anyone goes against you, you should kill them. I have observed you in these few years that you've been at this dog-shit sect. If I were you, I would have killed all of them already. Humph. If anyone dared to insult me, I would destroy them completely, especially that Wang Zhua. He really gets on my nerves. With my temper, I would have taken his soul and thrown it into purgatory and then wiped out his family. I really like that Zhang Hu in your sect. Quite vicious. Also, that Junior Lu really suits this old man's tastes. Wang Lin's expression became odd. He wryly smiled. Senior, don't interrupt me. I haven't finished speaking. Humph, your small sect also has quite a few good-looking ladies. You really don't know how to enjoy yourself. If it were me, I would have caught them and refined them for their soul. The taste really makes me reminisce about the past. I haven't tasted it in over 30 years. Wang Lin was dumbfounded and couldn't speak for a long time. Brat, can you work a bit harder? Hurry up and reach the soul transformation stage so this old man can come out. Sigh. Wang Lin hesitated. He was somewhat confused and asked, Senior, what is soul transformation stage? Also, what did you mean when you said I was at the spiritual movement stage? Can't you think for yourself? Always asking about everything. Forget it. For a little cultivator from only a rank 3 cultivation country, even if you think until your head explodes, you won't figure it out. Humph. Listen well, brat, I'm talking about the cultivation realm of a rank 5 cultivation country. In a rank 3 cultivation country like yours, there are only 4 realms: Qi condensation, foundation establishment, core formation, and nascent soul. As for the soul formation stage, it would be a thing of legends in your eyes. Once someone reaches the spirit forming stage, then your country's rank will be increased to a rank 4 cultivation country. With that, the country will be provided the appropriate resources from the Cultivation Alliance, and the country will also gain the right to fight for cultivation stars outside the country. The country would also need to undertake missions to protect the alliance. Similarly, if a soul transformation appears in a rank 4 country, it would be raised to a rank 5 country and so on. As for the spiritual movement stage, it is a stage commonly used in rank 4 country or higher. It is similar to the Qi condensation stage, but has a broader range. Wang Lin bitterly smiled and said, "Soul transformation is simply too far away for Junior." Bullshit. With me, who is from a rank 6 country, helping you, what is the soul transformation stage at all? Although I can't go out, I have been using my nascent soul essence to help you cultivate for these past 30 years. Otherwise, with your lack of talent, how could you have reached this stage in 30 years? And because you absorbed my nascent soul essence, besides people on the same cultivation level as me, no one else can see through your cultivation. Also, with the heaven-defying bead in your hands, what do you have to be afraid of? It took me painstaking effort to obtain this bead when it appeared in the Cultivation Alliance, resulting in me losing my body. My soul would have destroyed if I hadn't escaped into this bead. Originally, I wanted to find another body to use, but this damned heaven-defying bead. It seems that if someone without a body enters it, they can't leave. I won't lie to you. When I first saw you, I wanted to take over your body. But this heaven-defying bead is like a cage that prevents me from leaving. I studied this bead for many years. This bead must have an owner before many of its effects can be used and I can be released. When I obtained this bead, I was being hunted, but I had some time to study it. It must absorb the essence of the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth before it would identify an owner. But even so, the owner has to have reached the soul transformation before they can get me out of here. Ah, little kid, show some compassion and cultivate faster. Then help me find a good body to use. I, Situ Nan, will remember your kindness, and with my protection, you can live a safe and comfortable life. At the end, Situ Nan's tone wasn't as aggressive as before, but filled with regret. Wang Lin pondered a little. Right when he was about to speak, Situ Nan's voice came again. "Brat, someone came. I'll help you leave." Suddenly, the tearing feeling appeared. Wang Lin's body shook and he opened his eyes. He sent out his divine sense and found 2 disciples, one male and one female, quietly walking toward Wang Lin's direction. About 30 meters away from Wang Lin, the 2 stopped and started to kiss and flirt with each other. Soon, they both took off all their clothes and their moans echoed in the surroundings. Wang Lin was very familiar with these 2 disciples. Both of them were at the back mountain. He curiously looked at them for a while, especially at the female disciple, before he reluctantly left. Back at home, Wang Lin thought about what Situ Nan had said. Wang Lin didn't fully believe his words, but he had really learned a lot about how the cultivation world worked. Wang Lin didn't believe he would lie about those things. 3 days later, the exchange between the Hengyu sect and Xiandao sect officially began. This was a long-standing tradition between the 2 sects, so there wasn't too much fanfare. The location was set on the Pine Mountain peak of the Hengyu sect. An arched stone bridge connected the 2 peaks of the mountain. Wang Lin had seen the peak of Pine Peak Mountain from a distance, but could never get a clear look because of the clouds. Pine Peak Mountain was one of the important locations of the Hengyu sect. It had high spiritual energy density like the back mountain, and was where the 2 core formation elders went to cultivate. On top of the Pine Peak was a large stone platform prepared for this exchange. It was surrounded by 8 large pillars of white jade with the Hengyu sect's 500 years of history carved onto them. After arriving here, a majestic air radiated from the white jade pillars, and immediately transformed into killing intent that pierced the bones. Friend Huanglong, every time I see these white jade pillars it feels different. No wonder this is a treasure of the cultivation country of Zhao. Old man Ouyang sighed and waved his hand to destroy the killing intent. Behind him, all of the Xiandao sect disciples were shocked. In that moment, the killing intent made them feel as if they had entered a battlefield. They felt almost crushed by this feeling, until Elder Ouyang dispersed it. Fellow cultivator Ouyang, this is a treasure our founder personally made. Within 100 meters of the white pillars, any non-Hengyu sect disciple will be pressured by a killing intent. I believe Elder Ouyang understands, so please excuse us. Huanglong's face remained calm. His hand formed a seal and a gentle light shot out from the white jade pillars. Like large hands, the lights moved the clouds that covered the peak away. The killing intent also disappeared. Before him, all the inner disciples cracked their knuckles. Elder Ouyang turned and talked with the other 2 elders before saying, No worries. According to the old rules, we will send the first person. Lu Feng, you can go. Lu Feng was the male with the pure water spirit roots. He smiled, then took a deep breath and arrived on the stage like lightning. He said in a clear voice, Xiandao sect's Lu Feng asked the Hengyu sect for pointers. Wang Lin stood behind Sun Dazhu with the flying sword on his back, wearing his red disciple clothes. He looked quite majestic. Sun Dazhu was very satisfied with his disciple's appearance. Ever since Wang Lin had reached the third layer, whenever he looked at Wang Lin, he was no longer as annoyed as before. Although he was far from liking Wang Lin, he was at least starting to see Wang Lin as his disciple. Of course, all of this depended on whether or not Wang Lin could manage to get past the third layer. If after 8 to 10 years Wang Lin was still stuck at the third layer, then Sun Dazhu would probably hate Wang Lin again. In these 3 days, Wang Lin almost never left home. He spent most of that time in the dream space talking with Situnan. After a number of conversions, he came to some understanding about Situnan. Situnan was the rank 6 country of Suzaka's #1 expert. His cultivation was at an unimaginable level. He would kill anyone that annoyed him, steal anything he wanted, and was extremely arrogant. Because of the appearance of Lu Feng, the scene became very quiet. The sect head, Huang Long, looked at Lu Feng and said, Zhao Long, you go. Zhao Long was a very silent disciple. He was one of the disciples that had reached the 6th layer after the intense training. The Hengyu sect sent out a 6th layer disciple in the first round. This was a rare occurrence in the exchanges. Elder Ouyang didn't mind and said, Lu Feng, for this fight, I'll allow you to use 50% of your power. The moment he said those words, the people of the Hengyu sect's expressions all changed. Too showy. Apprentice brother Zhao. Beat him up and make the sect proud. Let that pretty face see how strong our Hengyu sect is. Go brother Zhao. The Xiandao sect is too arrogant. Brother Zhao, you must make him look miserable. They even dared to say something like only use 50% of their power. The Xiandao sect is too cunning. They already have an excuse ready for when they lose. I'll be watching brother Zhao. Go. All of the Hengyu sect disciples were riled up. Those words by the Xiandao sect elder hurt their self-esteem. The elders of the Hengyu sect's faces all darkened. They stayed silent, but their eyes became cold and their gazes toward the Xiandao sect became less friendly. Sun Dazhu chuckled. He smiled and whispered to Wang Lin, Disciple, watch this carefully. This exchange will be more intense than before. This is the first time the Xiandao sect has dared to be so arrogant. Wang Lin looked around at the angry inner disciples and then looked at Lu Feng. There was still a layer of black fog on his body that prevented Wang Lin from seeing his cultivation level. Lu Feng stood on the stage and gently said, Brother Zhao, since our sect elder has spoken, I'll only use 50% of my power in this fight. Zhao Long was of medium height. His complexion was dark and his body looked very strong. Instead of a cultivator, he looked more like a warrior in the mortal world. He cautiously looked at Lu Feng. He clasped his hands and said, Brother Lu, please. When he finished speaking, he took a step, then blooming white lotuses appeared one by one around him and floated around his body. Slivers of sword chi appeared on the white lotuses. Sounds of wind hitting Zhao Long's clothes could be heard, but there was no wind. Sect head Huang Long smiled. Zhao Long's lotus blade has already reached the mid-rank. Very good. The red-faced elder proudly said on the side. Haha, sect head Zhang Long is my favorite disciple. His talent is very good and he is very hard-working. This lotus blade is something he picked out himself from the sword pavilion. After 5 years, he has already reached the mid-rank. Elder Su smiled and said to the surrounding disciples, The lotus blade is known for its attack power. You inner disciples should take this opportunity to learn from him. Wang Zhua narrowed his eyes. He didn't show it on his face, but he thought, Lotus blade? I know it as well. Give me 5 years and I'll be stronger than him. Brother Zhao is usually so quiet. I didn't expect him to have already reached such a level with the lotus blade. Sun Hao secretly envied him and watched carefully. On the stage, Zhao Long shouted, Brother Lu, this lotus blade of mine is very powerful. You have to be careful. At that moment, the lotuses floating around Zhao Long started to rapidly spin and sword chi rained down on Lu Feng. Lu Feng's expression remained calm. He quickly moved backward and formed a sign with his hand and shouted, "Water screen!" At that moment, the sky darkened and specks of light appeared. They were water droplets. The water droplets gathered like lightning in front of Lu Feng, forming a screen of water. It shined rainbow colors and looked very pretty. Elder Ouyang faintly smiled and said to the disciples behind him, "Hung Sek's lotus blade is a very hard technique to master. You all have to remember, if you meet this lotus blade, you mustn't try to take it head-on, but avoid it, unless you're like Lu Feng, who has a pure water spirit root and can control the water at will." All the disciples nodded in agreement, all except the middle-aged man in the back, who had a look of disdain on his face. On the stage, the sword chi raining on Lu Feng hit the water screen. Zhao Long's face sank. This water screen was too strange. The moment the sword chi landed on it, they disappeared without any effect. He frowned and was about to use the same technique again, but he saw Lu Feng let out a smile. Lu Feng said, "Brother Zhao, you try and take on this lotus blade." The water rippled and sword chi shot out from the water screen toward Zhao Long. The same technique, the same sword chi. Zhao Long's expression changed. He quickly moved backwards, but the sword chi was too fast. He grinded his teeth and threw out yellow talismans from his bag of holding. The yellow talismans lit up without any fire and turned into a black mist. The sword chi landed on the black fog and dissipated. The black fog managed to block most of the sword chi before disappearing, but some sword chi still got through it and pierced Zhao Long's body. Zhao Long was launched into the air by the sword chi. He coughed out blood as he was flying in the air. He finally crashed into the ground. After struggling for a while, he failed to get up. There were many small holes throughout this body, however. None of them were that serious, so he wasn't in any life-threatening danger. Lu Feng had a very proud expression on his face. He stepped off the stage and said, "Disciple, listen to teacher and only use 50% of his power on the water rebound." The red-faced elder quickly moved. His body turned into a red mist and landed next to Zhao Long's body. His expression darkened as he patted Zhao Long's body a few times and fed him some precious pills. After that, he said, "A very good water screen reflect. Only someone of 8th layer or higher can break through it. My disciple isn't that strong yet, so defeat is normal." One by one, the Xiandao sect's disciples revealed looks of joy as they talked amongst each other. "Just a 6th layer disciple and he thinks he can fight with brother Lu Feng. I knew instantly that we were going to win round 1. So true. Brother Lu's water screen is very powerful. Even the elder can't stop praising it. They must be dreaming if they think they can break it." True. The Hung sect's disciples are getting weaker year after year. In these past few days, I checked out the inner sect disciples and none of them are a threat to us. That's not completely true. None of the Hung sect's purple-clothed disciples have appeared yet. I heard from the elder that those are the Hung sect's core disciples. Like the Xiandao sect disciples, the Hung sect disciples had all joined in the last 20 years and had never seen such a bloody scene before. All of them remained silent and felt uneasy in their hearts. Sect head Huang Long's expression remained sullen. He stayed silent for a long time. He could easily see that this Lu Feng was at the 6th layer, but didn't expect him to have such a powerful technique. His water screen couldn't be broken unless the attacker was at least at the 8th layer. This was only the first round and it was already like this. There was bitterness in his heart. The Hung sect had really fallen. He looked at his fellow apprentice brothers and saw that all of them had bitter expressions on their faces as well. Sun Daju sucked in a breath of cold air. Mother F***. A disciple is even more powerful than me. How does the Xiandao sect get disciples like this? How come I'm not this lucky? Wang Lin gave Lu Feng a deep look. He clearly saw what had happened. Although he was able to see through Lu Feng's cultivation when he used the water screen, Wang Lin was still shocked by the technique. Xiandao sect's elder Ouyang smiled and loudly said, "Friend Huang Long, in this second round, it's your turn to send out a disciple first." Huang Long's gaze swept across each inner disciple. Each of the disciples lowered their heads, hoping not to be selected. Seeing this, Huang Long became very angry. As he was about to speak, Sun Hao clenched his teeth and said, "Sect head, although disciple isn't a genius, I'm willing to fight in the second round." The few elders' expressions all changed and Elder Su frowned and said, "Sun Hao, you are only at the 4th layer. Don't mess around. Sun Hao hesitated for a while and said, Disciple has a new technique. Although I can't win, I can still make them look bad. He thought in his heart, right now no one wants to go, so if I go up now, I can leave a good impression with the sect head. Even if I can't win with this stink bomb, I won't look bad. Sorry brother Li Shan, I bought this from you and now I'm using it on you guys. I guess it can be called karma. In these past few days, he felt that he had gained a good understanding of how to use the stink bombs. He tried it himself and failed, but after going to brother Li Shan, he finally succeeded a few times. Although due to lack of time he didn't get to practice more, he felt that with a few tries he could make it work. Huang Long pondered a while and sighed. He nodded and said, You can go. Let me see your new technique. Sun Hao straightened his body and stepped onto the platform. He said, Hengyu sect disciple Sun Hao asks the Xiandao sect for guidance. When Li Shan saw Sun Hao, his lungs almost burst from laughing. When he saw that Elder Ouyang was about to appoint a disciple, he quickly stepped up and said, Elder, disciple Li Shan is willing to go up and spar with him. He even winked as he was talking. Li Shan was a disciple that caused Elder Ouyang many headaches, but Ouyang also knew that Li Shan was very cunning and wouldn't do anything that was disadvantageous to him. Elder Ouyang knew that if Li Shan was willingly going up, he was 100% confident in himself, so he let him go. Li Shan excitedly went up to the stage. His heart was about to burst with excitement. He thought, Oh Sun Hao, you've brought this upon yourself. When Sun Hao saw Li Shan come up, his expression became strange. Li Shan loudly said, Brother Sun Hao, come and show me your newest technique. I, Li Shan, will stand here and take your attack. Sun Hao hesitated a bit. He had already reached the level to use flying swords. His hand formed a seal and a red sword quickly flew out and floated around him, revealing a cold light. Go! The flying sword rapid flew toward Li Shan and Sun Hao took this time to take out several stink bombs. He shouted, See my new technique! Li Shan let out a loud laugh. He easily dodged the flying swords and thought in his heart, Explode! The stink bombs in Sun Hao's hands exploded with a bang before he even threw them. A putrid stench spread out to the surroundings. Sun Hao stood there, covered in black ash, dumbfounded. He couldn't understand why these stink bombs exploded before he even threw them. Did he use too much force earlier? Li Shan let out a sigh and said, Brother Sun Hao's move is too strong. What is it called? Self-destruct? I already told you before you need to be careful with the stink bomb, but you used too much force grabbing them and they exploded. All of the Xiandao sect disciples roared with laughter and sounds of ridicule could be heard. Even the Hengyu sect disciples wanted to laugh, but they didn't dare to as it might anger the elders. Huang Long angrily waved his hand. A wave of wind blew the stench away and even flew the dumbfounded Sun Hao off the pine peak back to the Hengyu peak. Elder Ouyang smiled and said, That Sun Hao misused his technique, so we don't know his real strength. Let's call this a draw. After he finished speaking, he gave Li Shan an approving look. Huang Long gloomily said, A loss is a loss. How is it a draw? Continue. Elder Ouyang laughed and said, No less from the largest sect 500 years ago. Sumu, you go up. A disciple walked out from the Xiandao sect. He was about 24 to 25 years old. He clasped his hands together on the stage and didn't say more. Huang Long didn't call out any inner disciples, but took out a piece of jade and gently crushed it. The moment it was crushed, a flash of blue light appeared on the stage. 3 people walked out of the shining blue light. These 3 people wore purple clothes. The moment those 3 appeared, they released a very strong pressure that shocked the inner disciples. Elder Ouyang's expression slightly changed and he carefully examined those 3. The middle-aged man standing in the back of the Xiandao sect suddenly turned to them. His eyes lit up and displayed an urge to fight. When the 3 men appeared, they coldly looked at the audience. One of the 40-year-old middle-aged men said, Xiandao sect? 20 years ago I Lu Song lost, but this time I won't. Wang Lin's pupils contracted. Among the 3 people, he only knew one of them. Second apprentice brother Zhang Kuang. Huang Long plainly said, Lu Song, this time you go. Lu Song nodded. The other 2 besides him moved off the stage and stood next to Huang Long. Lu Song. 5th senior brother Lu Song. I heard he was at the 6th layer 20 years ago. This time, our Hengyu sect will win for sure. He is Lu Song. I heard from the elders that he is the #1 genius in the Hengyu sect. Xiandao sect is going to lose for sure. 5th senior bother go. I will follow your example. The Hengyu sect disciples all cheered with excitement. All of the confidence they lost from the first 2 losses had started to come back. Some of the female disciples became love-struck and felt dependent on Lu Song. Huang Long also smiled faintly. He thought that since Lu Song had come out this time, he would win this round for sure. Wang jealously looked at Lu Song and softly snorted. Even the Xiandao sect disciples were filled with shock. Lu Song's fame was something they had heard of as they grew up in the past 20 years. Although Lu Song ultimately lost in the exchange, he still left a deep impression in the elders' minds. Elder Ouyang's face darkened. He said, "Sumu, I'll allow you to remove Ancestor Seal to use your full power." Sumu's expression became serious. He opened up his shirt and revealed a yellow talisman on his chest. The elders of the Hengyu sect were stunned. After carefully looking at the talisman, they all revealed shocked expressions. Huang Long asked, "Friend Ouyang, this talisman?" Elder Ouyang's eyes lit up. He indifferently said, "Huang Long, this is something that I'll explain to you at another time. In this exchange today, I'll add another condition. If our Xiandao sect wins this time, you have to lend us the Hengyu mountain for 500 years. Everyone's expressions changed. Huang Long narrowed his eyes and said, "Are you joking, friend Ouyang?" Elder Ouyang shook his head. He said, "Huang Long, as you can see, this talisman can't be created by someone not of the nascent soul stage. To tell you the truth, an ancestor of the Xiandao sect returned from the battlefield of a rank 4 country, and told me that all of the ancestors of the Hengyu sect have died." Huang Long's expression changed. After pondering for a long time, he said, "Elder Ouyang, stop this nonsense, otherwise, don't blame the Hengyu sect for not showing mercy." Elder Ouyang smiled and said, "Our Xiandao sect hasn't taken this mountain by force yet. Because of our friendship, so we will give you guys a fair chance in this exchange. If the Hengyu sect wins this time, then we will leave you guys be. I already passed my message. Huang Long, let us continue this exchange." The inner disciples of the Hengyu sect were all confused, but all of them felt giant rocks weighing down their hearts. Even the sky felt like it had darkened. Wang Lin was alarmed. It seemed that what Situ Nan said was true. The cultivation world really was separated by ranks. Sun Daju's face was pale and his eyes were dull. He muttered to himself, it's all over, all of the Hengyu sect's ancestors are dead. Before, we could at least rely on the ancestors to intimidate the other sects and barely hold on. But now that the ancestors are dead, it's all over. Damn it, if it wasn't for the rank 4 countries invading 500 years ago to steal the Dragon Star and resulting in the country calling away all its nascent soul cultivators, the Hengyu sect wouldn't be in the state it's in now." Huang Long saw his fellow brothers and inner disciples' uneasiness. He suppressed the unrest in his heart and shouted, "Everyone in the Hengyu sect, stop panicking. Whether this is true or not will be checked by the core formation elder. What are you all worrying about? Lu Song, continue the exchange." Lu Song, who was on the stage, was also shocked by Ouyang's words, but he regained his composure. He opened his mouth and spat out a purple fog. The fog grew until it became a giant hand and grabbed towards Sumu. Sumu's expression slightly changed. He didn't say a word and slammed his bag of holding. 6 golden balls flew out and went toward the hand. Lu Song coldly smiled. His hand formed a seal and the giant hand waved in the air, causing an evil wind that moved the golden balls off course. This evil wind also caused the spiritual energy in Sumu's body to go out of control. He quickly shouted, "Explode!" The 6 golden balls simultaneously exploded. The explosion released shock waves that blew all of the audience back a bit. Lu Song snorted and mocked, "A small trick." The giant hand formed a fist. Ignoring the explosion, the fist quickly slammed down. Sumu's face was pale. Seeing that the hand was about to land on him, he clenched his teeth and took out a yellow talisman. The talisman looked plain. Sumu bit his tongue and sprayed out some blood. The blood mist in the air quickly transformed into liquid and formed a blood dragon. Sumu didn't bat an eye and formed a seal with his hand. The blood dragon twisted and turned. It formed into a strange image that imprinted onto the talisman. The yellow talisman suddenly started to glow a glaring light, as if it were a small sun. The fist dissipated in front of everyone's eyes. After Wang Lin saw this, he was shocked. He had one of those talismans as well. It is a magic talisman. Lu Song frowned. He waved his sleeves and 2 white dragons flew out. The white dragons flew around once and charged at Sumu at lightning speed. Sumu let out a pitiful laugh. He used all of his energy to resist the giant fist that came down on him. He had no energy to stop those 2 white dragons at all. Seeing that the 2 white dragons were already showing their ferocious teeth at the most dangerous moment, a cold snort came from the Xiandao sect disciples. Shortly after, a black rainbow shot out from the Xiandao sect and easily surrounded the 2 white dragons. With a cracking sound, the 2 white dragons quickly disappeared and turned into 2 silver swords. The black rainbow tightened again and broke the 2 swords in half. Lu Song's expression suddenly changed. The flying swords linked to his soul were broken, which caused him to cough out a mouthful of blood. His face revealed a horrified expression. The giant hand above Sumu's head dissipated as well, since Lu Song couldn't keep his concentration. Sumu quickly left with the yellow talisman with the look of him getting lucky today. Lu Song also walked off the stage with a bleak expression. Huanglong's face sank. He shouted, "Xiandao sect, don't go too far." The elders beside him also became enraged. Some of the more ill-tempered elders already took out their treasures, ready to fight. The inner disciples also saw what was going out and became angry. The remaining 2 yellow-clothed disciples all looked at the middle-aged man standing in the back of the Xiandao sect. It was him who let out that cold snort earlier. Elder Ouyang turned back and looked at the middle-aged man. He warily smiled and said, "This 3rd round is won by the Hengyu sect. As for what just happened, Old man Ouyang, don't say any more pointless words. This Hengyu sect is only mediocre." The middle-aged man standing in the back slowly walked forward. As he took a step, the ground suddenly split and the crack extended all the way to the stage.